Hello everyone, my name is Rodolfo Kosovic. I am from Argentina and I'm an assistant arts professor at NYU Shanghai. Right now I am located in China and I wish that I was there face to face with you to discuss some of the topics that are of my most dear interest. Let's try to do this over video. So the article I would like to discuss is project-based learning, PBL, approach to teach electromagnetism. And the place specifically I am inside of my university is the interactive media arts. So I'll talk a little bit about the place I am, and also I'll discuss something from my own background before getting into the article. So a lot of crazy things, because you will see there, besides of a VR goggle and bubbles, that we have undergrad students approaching technology, but also trying to think critically about it. So we have between robots and video documentaries or brain waves, everything in between, and trying to have an approach where we think about all these issues that technology is bringing to our lives, and some of them are actually inspiring and making us wish that we have more of that in our lives, but some of them are very critical, as I was saying. So these images are recorded during the end of semester show, so it's a big gathering we have, and we bring all these ideas mixing digital and physical to the world. When I was at electronics engineering courses in Argentina, I really suffered quite a bit with lecturing. I thought that was a conflict with what learning meant to me. And so this image that I left there is one of the experiments that one of the students prepared for their final project, and it has this ferromagnetic fluid. We will see it, but I think that there is some curiosity about the phenomena that surrounds us that can be very, very important to trigger thoughts that are more relevant than just thinking of how do we memorize the theory or how do we perform in an exam. Some of these aspects of the course were about how do we build a circuit. So we have there what is a circuit, obviously, but it is in a very original format. We did a workshop with a lecturer guest that he invited us to cut wood and solder and use a hammer with nails to recreate and rethink how do we build circuits. So all these things were aiming to something that I selected this picture to talk about it. It's like we engage the community, we embrace that curiosity and look at the expression of that kid looking at some of the experiments we did, of like saying like, how did this happen, right? So that curiosity was actually the main trigger and the hook for the students to go through a learning journey. Here, the key factor is that I have this experience with students with very different backgrounds, and for example, some of them were from engineering and they wanted to build a rail gun. They wanted to shoot at things. So we had a lot of conversations about why were they interested in that, and they ended up shooting at something, but actually taking high-speed pictures from that. So what we are seeing now on the screen, it's sand that is very thin and white color, and there's a small bullet that is crossing the sand. That's why we see this small explosion. The project of the student was actually to study the magnetic field to push this bullet through a coil and to take the picture at the right moment, so he was able to capture this moment of disruption. And the same happened with another student from computer science, where he was very interested in electronic music, we were talking about sparks, and sparks make some noise. So he played music with sparks. All these kind of things, I think that they were very important for me to discover. And in this exploration, I thought that actually the philosophy behind designing the course and what does it mean to me to have hands-on approach to education, and actually that meant somehow to give ownership to students and to work together with them, and somehow the objectives that I had in mind for the course were deviating from what I thought that it was going to be unfolding as activities of the course, but actually that was also informing me about what were the interests of the students, and together we read quite a bit, and we started thinking about how do we make sense of all these other experiences we're having, and those models actually were very successful achieving the learning objectives. So some of the pre-assumptions I had were that my students, right, they don't read, and there's always this thing with grading, and the GPA is more important than anything I say in class, so they don't care about anything that the right answer, and they memorize those answers, and kind of like the only way for them to work on something is if I motivate them with grading. But actually, I use a diversity of tools in class, and some of them were that we just play sort of like a game, because I was talking about some scientist. I don't remember the name, the guy that is in jail. It looks like a cage, and actually the electricity cannot enter. Can you remember the name? Yeah, with radio frequency outside, cannot enter inside. And they were just using Google for them to look for that information. So that kind of little games where I fake not knowing something and then becoming the researchers were actually leading us to find, oh, that's the Faraday's cage. And the way that they found out is this. And it was taking us to some other news that maybe were about supercomputing, or they were about how we today a little bit concerned about radio waves and the possible harm that it does to our body. And we were embracing those. And sometimes they were like also fake news that we were analyzing in class. So those things actually became very valuable. And if I was the one preparing the syllabus and just distributing it, instead of having a project-based learning approach, we wouldn't have had the time to discuss those. So we also read quite a bit of bios of researchers, and we created together a short list of conferences and papers that were related to what we were interested in, and that's how we ended up getting a bigger context than our small classroom experiments. And I asked them to carry on all those experiments, keeping a working journal, just a blog. So some of them were using vlogging, right? So they were putting the camera, and one of them even had a selfie stick, and she was narrating all these experiments she wasn't doing in class. And I thought that those tools are actually helping quite a bit the dynamics of the class. Almost all of those were actually really, really good. And the field trips were actually enlightening for them. We went here in Shanghai to an electronics market where there are circuits everywhere, and even chips on the floor, and they were like wondering how did all these things happening in the background, and I was not aware of that. And the awareness was very important for us. And the other thing is that also I embrace with them, saying, well, okay, we are going to use this simulator. I know our circuits, but I don't know this tool. Let's try together to find out if we figure out where are the key elements for us to learn together. So those were actually really working well. Then there were some things that were not working as smoothly as I hoped. One of them was that instead of using the library as our main resource and having a set of already checked sources, we ended up starting to have other sources and magazines and some instructables and some reference in a movie became part of our daily conversation, and also YouTubers. And then there was this uncertainty if what we were seeing was actually useful and if it was helping us or actually a distraction. So there were many discussions to follow up, and sometimes those were open-ended, and it was difficult to keep track of those and following them to a conclusion. But I think that all those are things with some space for improvement. So I leave here the article itself. I would like to read out loud the abstract, and if you're interested, of course, my email is there, and I will be very happy to discuss further, maybe online or maybe in person next time we see each other. This work discusses the development and results of a teaching methodology where undergrad students use an exploratory approach to learn about electromagnetism with project-based learning. The innovation, when compared with traditional methodology, has been to put the students in the role of researchers, facilitating an environment where theory and practice interweave with each other. Samples of the work of students covering artistic experiments with induction heating, Lichtenberg figures, plasma manipulation, and ferromagnetic fluids are shown as evidence of depth and breadth into their learning experiences. The results are analyzed and discussed both from the perspective of the students and professors. So if you click on the thing I left there, it will take you to the paper itself, and you can easily comment on it. So please feel free to do so. So thank you so much for sharing these minutes with me, and I look forward to have further conversations with you.